everyone, this is the Retro Gamer Ranting, and today I'm going to be doing a review/rant on Rise of the Triad, which is a game that's a remake of the original Rise of the Triad that came out in the 90s, which is a game I was looking forward to since I saw the trailer a while back, because I'm a child of the 90s, and the 80s for that matter. I played all those old DOS games and practically everyone, any first-person shooter that came out in the 90s on the PC, I at least played the shareware version of it. ROTT was one of them, Rise of the Triad. One of the things I was concerned about was the fact that it's basically a retelling of the old game, and I was wondering just how much it would change from the original. And that seems to be one of the things I was hoping that they would address, because one of the things about the original, what made it great was also one of its downfalls. The original Rise of the Triad, or I'll just say ROTT for now on, was just a ludicrous game. It threw you into a ludicrous setting. It was just meant to be fun. And what it basically was trying to be was a Doom killer. Back in the 90s, there was such a thing called the Doom clones and Doom killing. Any FPS that came out after Doom usually had a blog on the back of its box saying, "Oh, it's better than Doom." Every one of them said it, even if it wasn't better than Doom. And of course, ROTT was one of them. And it did a pretty good job. It didn't kill Doom, but it was a nice distraction from Doom. And that's what kind of was its strong point and its downfall at the same time. It was fun to play because of all the ludicrous gore and all the over-the-top explosive weapons and that kind of stuff, and it had some pretty ludicrous multiplayer as well, but the problem was it was a bit too ludicrous, and so what it ended up being was a nice time waster or nice distraction while you weren't playing Doom or any of your other favorite FPSs at the time. So you would play it a little at a time, move on. What it had flaw-wise was the level design was a bit wonky. It was one of those games where you probably never really beat it, because you would only play the first couple levels, and once the levels got too mazy, which it was running off of a highly adapted version of the original Wolfenstein 3D, so that was a mazy game. You'd have to take a look at ROTT, and that was even more maze-like. So the level design wasn't all that great, and mostly people just played it for the insane moments it would give at the time. So I was really curious to see how the Apogee was going to update that for the, I guess, re-imaging or just a remake of it. And the good news and the bad news is they didn't, in a way. Honestly, I'm disappointed, but still thrilled at the same time. It's really, really weird. I've never been so conflicted with this, because I can see how there's going to be a lot of people playing this game that's absolutely going to hate it. And then there's going to be people like me and can see where the flaws are, but coming from the standpoint of the original game, can appreciate it. And here's where the developers went wrong. They tried way too hard to make it like the original game. The good news is the level design has gotten better. There's still traps, they're more linear, so it's not quite as mazy, so you pretty much can get from point A to point B without too much problem, so that's kind of nice. Level design works. It's not going to blow you away. You're not going to look at a level and be like, "That is so gorgeous." It's like, no. I do have a bit of a complaint about some of the platforming elements. There's a couple elements in the game that basically you have to rely on platforming. And I'm not a big fan of platforming in FPSs. Granted, back in the day, that was a huge thing, especially since they brought back the mechanic of the jump pads and the little floating elevators and stuff like that, which I honestly think they could have done this game without. And they are even a bit glitchy. Like, there were a couple of little moving elevators that would clip me into the wall, which kind of was a bummer. But other than that, like I said, the level design works. It's not amazing, but it's going to work, and it's not quite as confusing as before. Unfortunately, that's one of the only things they've actually improved. And fortunately at the same time. I know, I'm sounding confusing. The old game didn't really have much in the form of AI. Obviously, it's an older game, so any FPS from the 90s you're probably going to look at and go, well, the AI wasn't really that great back then anyway. You know, you think after all these years they'd improve upon it. One, this game, AI is dead as bricks. They'll stand there in one spot and shoot at you, sometimes facing a wall They'll just stand, they'll know you're there, they'll know you're on the other side of the wall, and they'll just shoot at the wall instead, or they'll just stand there, or they'll just run at you, one at a time. It's just like a herd of cattle. And there's some really cool, quirky AI moments. Some of them roll. Some AI guys, actually, if you get too close to them, they'll steal your weapon from you, which the first time that happened, I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, where's my weapon go? And then I realized, oh, that guy actually stole it from me. But he didn't use it against me, which I thought was interesting. Like, there was no visual cue that he stole it from me. Like, if he would have stole it and then started using it against me, that would have made more sense. But so that's kind of cool. They have those. And I do kind of like how they introduce some new bad guys. Like, they kind of introduce him as a mini-boss. But other than that, the AI is pretty much dumb as bricks. And again, I'm fine with that because it's just a shooting gallery game anyway. It's not supposed to have amazing AI. You're supposed to go in and shoot things. I do have a bit of a gripe about the fact that the AI doesn't even improve when you increase the difficulty. All it really does is it adds more bad guys. The bad guys maybe take more hits, and maybe they become a little more accurate with their shots. Too accurate sometimes. And then we come to the over-the-top weapons, which are still over the top, which is a great thing. But the problem is those haven't been really updated that much from the original game too, and they all pretty much do the same thing. The super weapons explode. Now you can carry 3 normal weapons, a special weapon, like a special rocket weapon, and then there's like the supernatural weapons you can get, like a supernatural baseball bat, I can't remember the name of it. There's like this wand that shoot things, and those are kind of cool. Those are extra weapons. Those are fun to use, and OP is all heck. And then there's all these rocket launchers that do different things. Some cause a flame wall, some have heat seeking, some cause like a small nuke explosion, you know, and some's just a normal rocket, which is fine and dandy and all, but they all do the same thing. They explode, just in different ways. And it's way too easy, especially when you're in close quarters, to blow yourself up or do a lot of damage, especially when you're playing a multiplayer game, which this kind of misbalances multiplayer, which I'll get to in a minute. So, other than that, like your normal weapons, you have pistols, dual pistols, and I guess a submachine gun or just a machine gun. And that's it. You don't get a shotgun, you don't get a sniper rifle. You know, it wouldn't have hurt them too much to throw in a shotgun or a sniper rifle along with it or something, because I guess you don't need it. I guess the old game didn't have it, but it just seemed weird that they had like 2 normal weapons and then all the other weapons are just ludicrous. Besides the normal rocket launcher is the least ludicrous of all the other weapons. And it's fun because it's just great just splattering huge groups of bad guys, especially since they love to bunch up in a big group. It's like, ooh, look, we just gave you this huge gun. Now here comes a giant wave of bad guys. Use it. It's like, okay, and there's something satisfying about it. But of course, that satisfaction wears off after a while. So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, I'm done with this. Let's move on. So how this carries over to multiplayer is when you do get into a multiplayer match is everyone has ludicrous guns. And if you don't have a ludicrous gun, you're pretty much dead. Coupled with the fact that there's a lot of crazy power-ups, like the ability to fly, God mode power-up, and so on. Like if someone grabs a God mode power-up and the fly mode power-up, they'll pretty much dominate a match, no matter what. So that kind of leaves things misbalanced, and I would have liked a way so you could set up the match and maybe put what power-ups you want and what guns, kind of little mutators a la Unreal Tournament. That would have been nice. So again, in multiplayer, you're either having a ludicrously good time, or if you're on the receiving end of getting rocketed all the heck all the time, you're probably not. So again, it sort of turns into the yin and yang. There's either one side of the coin or another. So what does that all mean? It just seems like I'm talking all negative about this game so far. Well, the thing is the single player is still pretty fun. It's not going to be a memorable single player experience. A lot of the levels are short, and the enemies are fun to destroy, and you could probably blow through it in an evening if you really want to. And the multiplayer is a hit or miss at the most part, but it's still a nice distraction. And that's what this game does. It actually captures every ounce of the essence of the original game. Almost to a fault, of course. But if you're someone like me who remembers playing the original game, then you do enjoy it. And again, it turns into a nice distraction from your normal everyday FPS that you find yourself playing. It's not something you're going to come and sit and stay and play for hours on end, but you'll sit and play for a little while. and probably enjoy your experience, and then set it aside and come back to it later. That's ultimately what it is. I would have loved for the developers to add a lot more to it. It seems like they tried way too hard to stay close to the original material. And while I appreciate that because I remember it, a lot of newer gamers probably aren't, or are going to have a hard time grasping it. Here's hoping if they do make a sequel to this, they change things around. Maybe add some more balanced weapons, add more modes to multiplayer. It does seem like it's going to have a mod community, at least that's what it says, and people will be able to make their own maps and stuff, so who knows, in the process, maybe people will be able to balance out the multiplayer more with mods and maps and so on. So here's hoping. So do I actually recommend this game? Well, because I am a retro gamer, I'm a little biased, but I will say yes. It's an enjoyable experience. It's ludicrous and over the top. You're not going to be really expecting stellar AI or balanced multiplayer. So if you like a good FPS distraction, then go for it. Otherwise, maybe wait for a sale to come around and grab it when it's a little cheaper. It's not perfect, and heavens forbid, there are some performance issues that they need to work on. But it does a good job of bringing back all those nostalgic feelings from the past. Till next time, game fans, keep playing, and thanks for watching.
Your thoughts betrayed.